Honorable Dan Carter, the Mayor of Oshawa. Oshawa is an important town, an important city. It's not a town, it's a city.
That's right. That's right.
In Ontario, Canada, for those of you who are with us outside of Canada on the international stage. We have with us Mr. Dan Carter, who has been Mayor of Oshawa for the past, 3 years, is it?
It's 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yeah, I'm still a novice.
It feels long. And we want to talk to the mayor of this city. He's the mayor of a city. And we want to talk to him about the future of this city within the context of what is going on globally in the situation of COVID. Dan, Mr. Mayor, they're talking about a third wave coming in April. What do you think of that?
So first and foremost, Sean, it's good to see you again, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you. I am concerned. So let me just talk about the third wave and what I know about the third wave. The third wave, to my understanding, is about the variants that are coming up. So there is the two variants that they're quite concerned about. I think there's the UK variants, and I think there's also an African variants that they're worried about. In Toronto, they saw early indications of the variants. It went from about 480 people to almost 800 people, then it jumped up to 1,400, and then it went to almost 2,000. Now, within a very short period of time. Now, the good news about it is it hasn't grown much from that particular area. But we are seeing the numbers both in the GTA and surrounding areas, Sean, is they are starting to grow. People are concerned about that. And the other aspect of this is the fatigue that people are feeling in regards to COVID-19. And I think that that's what we're really worried about. People are tired. They want to get back to normal. They don't want to follow the guidelines. They hate wearing masks. They've just had enough. And what we're trying to do as leaders is try and say to people, please continue to wear your mask, continue to wash your hands, continue to stay apart, and let's do this a little bit longer so we can get through this period of time. But the third wave, they're looking at really April as being a vital month. So I'm worried.
For me, the way I deal with it is I look to the future and I tell myself, because we have a business that was impacted tremendously as well over the past year, and we had to adjust, and part of the live streaming is that we are preparing ourselves for a new future. So the way I deal with it, even with the third wave coming, is to say there's a new future, let's educate ourselves on it, let's position ourselves for it, and let us be prepared for that new society that is emerging, because I don't think we're going back to what they call normal back in the day. Do you think there is a need to bring awareness, a new consciousness to the public, that people would approach this whole situation instead of panicking and being antsy and all that, in a way that is even exciting, that says, I'm looking forward to that new future?
Well, to be absolutely honest, if you look at it as the economy has had to pivot and change dramatically. So our economy is going to not only discover new ways of doing business and having the opportunity to do new business, but they're also going to be able to see new opportunities, new industries. Let's face it, Sean. When it comes to PPE, which is the personal protection, we're going to have to do this in Canada and make sure that we have the supply. When it comes to vaccines, we're going to have to go back into that business, and the federal government is going to have to play a role in regards to it. So yes, this last year can get us running out the door and going, oh my goodness, the sky is falling. Or we can look at it as a new time of optimism and what our economy could be delivering for us. I think there's a couple of really good opportunities that are in front of us.
Like?
Well, I think that one is that I think you're going to see emerging technologies. You're going to see different ways of doing business. I mean, one of the things that I'm really amazed at is how well a lot of companies have pivoted. I'll give you one small example, the culinary or restaurant industry. In Canada, because of the reason that we're a four-season country, we've always looked at dining indoors and then in the summertime, dining outdoors kind of thing, right? But you're seeing the culinary industry saying, no, I think we have to embrace outdoor dining 12 months a year. That means we're going to have these temporary structures that'll be there to accommodate our diners, and it gives us an opportunity to extend our dining areas. I think that that's a new opportunity for the culinary and service industry that I think can be exciting. I think people will also appreciate being out somewhere, and I think that you're going to see a lot of those locations benefit because of that.
So we are seeing, I think we're going to see tremendous transformation within, let's take two major industries, transportation
Yes.
and housing,
Yes.
how people live at home.
Yes.
And commuting from work and all those things.
Yeah.
Transportation would affect all those things, how people travel from home to work. And because we had, I keep saying this to people, we had, the world has around 800 million cars on the road, maybe more. And you had a situation where emerging economies are booming, China, Russia, South Africa, India, these economies are booming, Asia. And people will be driving to work in the morning, so roads are clogged up all over the world with traffic, and then in the afternoon they're coming home.
Yeah.
And what they're saying, people like Dr. Mark Carney, for example, is that this was pouring so much pollution in the planet, and since the pandemic happened for the past year, that has eased tremendously.
Well, you bring that up, and one of the most amazing things that happened last April was somebody saying for the very first time they saw the Himalayas. I went, wow. And then what they did is they did a map of all the air traffic, and you could see the impact of the decrease there. Another thing is you talk about emerging opportunities that are in front of us because of COVID. You're seeing the extension of the electric car. You're seeing all of the major manufacturers making major commitments in regards to saying we will be fully electric by 2030 or 2040. So the combustion engine is going. That is also, I think, is moving that technology forward. They're saying in North America, the electric car business will be a tremendous opportunity for us moving forward. So that's good not only for the economy, but it's also good for the environment. But also at the same time, you talk about transportation. Transportation is going to change dramatically. You're right. The city of Toronto, downtown Toronto, had 400,000 people that worked in the office towers on a daily basis that came in from east, west, north, and south.
400,000.
400,000. They estimate
that travel to the city
to the cities just to go to those towers and work.
Wow.
So now what they're estimating is 30% of people are going to be working from home. So if you look at that, that's 120,000 less people going into Toronto. So how will that impact not only the environment, but how will that impact public transit and GO transit? And what about healthy lifestyles at home? What is that going to do to our local economy? Our local economy is going to have an opportunity to see it grow by 30% because people will be buying lunches and they're going to be buying things here locally instead of buying them in the GTA. So there's always good and bad. The one thing that's come out of COVID is innovation has come out. We've had to transform our economy. I think it's pushed us to be able to look at being more efficient. I think we've done some good things, believe it or not, because of the environment. And I think that we have to look at these things and consider it. So what else is going to change dramatically?
So let's talk about Oshawa. You're a mayor of Oshawa.
Yes.
And you're a big part of the regional administration.
Yes.
Because you have a voice as a mayor. You have a voice in Canada as a mayor.
Yes.
With the mayor's confab that they have, I think, every year or 2 years or whatever.
Yes.
What is being done in Oshawa to shift the consciousness of people away from this idea that COVID is, and a lot of people have this conspiracy theories, what is going on, the people behind the curtains are messing with us. Are there any public campaigns in Oshawa, for example, to shift the mindset of people so that they look forward to the new society emerging?
So the biggest thing that I have to just say is we have been, all of our communication, all of our dialogue with the public really is about the new environment that we're in. So about health, safety, and making sure our community is able to meet the demands of the community right now. Sean, I'll be very honest with you. We have concentrated on people's public and public safety. That's been our number one issue. And that's where we've really been talking about it. My approach, especially starting in 2021, was really about, okay, so we've got this public pandemic that has gone on, but how do we take us as a city, how do we embrace this opportunity so that we can see that you can stay home, you can work locally, that we can invest in our communities. So we're having conversations about how does housing change? How does our green space change? What do we need to do to be able to provide different services for even those that are less fortunate? What do we need to do in regards to getting people active? Does that mean more bike lanes and green spaces? Which really, catapults us into the new world. You're a young guy. You and your family are going to want green spaces and bike lanes, and you're going to want to have that experience, because if COVID has done anything, I think it's really demanded that communities are going to have to create healthy, vibrant communities. But one of the biggest things I'm trying to do also is, let's bring more jobs into the area, not only because it's good for the economy, but I want to see people work locally. If you're at home, instead of you traveling 3 hours into the GTA to go to work and then 3 hours back, by the time you get home, you're like, just like this, right? And you're no good to either yourself or your family. So why not create those opportunities here locally so that people have the opportunity to be able to work locally? To me, that's a big part of where we need to be. But our number one priority so far has just been the health, the safety, and the well-being of our residents.
And I get that. I get that people need to be made aware of the vital importance of staying healthy and therefore taking the precautions, wearing masks and 6 feet and all those things, and in public, which is a good thing. But what I find frustrating is not only here in Oshawa, Canada, but worldwide, is that COVID has opened up tremendously positive opportunities.
Yes.
For us to change the way we live.
Yes.
Society wasn't working for billions of people before. A lot of people didn't even have access to good Wi-Fi. This pandemic could possibly change all that. And I go back to, if I may, I go back to when we were discussing the last time you were here, how Oshawa went through that transition from an agricultural society into an industrial city with McLaughlin back in 1980 when that happened. And I think a similar thing is happening now.
It is, and you bring up a lot of really good points. We did go from that kind of agricultural to the industrial kind of revolution. Now we're into knowledge base and new technologies. That's an exciting part of our city and the new opportunity that awaits us. I think, Sean, the way that you're looking at it is not about the dark side of what COVID has done and how people are feeling. You're looking at the light side of it and saying, what do we need to do to prepare so that we're ready for the next 10 years? I'm doing a lecture, matter of fact, at Ontario Tech University tomorrow. I'm talking to the next generation of leaders in regards to communities and COVID and our communities and how we've addressed things and where we're going, but also what I've learned out of the experience. And I think I've learned a great deal out of it. I mean, I've learned a great deal about myself and about the public, about personal contact. Like, I just look at, having the opportunity, even with you and I in the studio today, this is great to be able to do. You and I have had to wait because, for the longest time we weren't allowed to be in a gathering. This is important to have conversations like this. So I think we're learning about the appreciation of that personal contact, and I think that that's a really important thing. But I think we've got to embrace what you're trying to say. And that is, let's take this opportunity not to be able to look at the dark side of COVID, but let's look at the light side. Where do we need to be? What advances do we need to bring forward? How are we going to use the brain power of 145 different countries that are represented at our post-secondary education right here in our city? How are we going to get those young people to come up with ideas and concepts so that we can see ourselves catapulted past other communities and be prepared, not only economy ways, but also in the lifestyles that we have awaiting us. So there's a lot smarter people than me that are out there, and I love listening to young people because they think in a whole different world, and you got to sit there and go, how did you think this? AI, as you know, is going to play a significant role as we move forward, but there's a big debate on AI, and at what point do we really embrace AI to the point where it starts thinking for itself? Because as you know, and you're a technical person, a very technical person, by the way, AI continues to learn all the way through the process. So, at what point are we going to make sure that there is boundaries in regards to AI, and what role will it play in society? And how far are we willing as a human society to go? That's a really interesting subject.
And for me, Mr. Mayor, the AI hub is in Oshawa. We're a teaching city, I think the only teaching city, this city in North America. Oshawa is the only designated teaching city. We have the AI hub, which is a fantastic part of the education environment in the city. Then of course we have the university and the college and students, you said, from 145 countries who come to this city. So it's an international city. It's part of the Toronto paradigm, the GTA, how we operate and everything. What I find kind of out of sync is things like this. At the top level of society, global society, you have things like the Sustainable Development Goals. Those 17 goals of the United Nations, right, which have timetables, they have to be implemented, they are communicated to regions and cities and provinces and the country as a whole. Then you had the Great Reset, of course, with the World Economic Forum coming out with this document last year, saying that after COVID we could reset society to be more humane, more bring about equality and justice and all those things.
Let's hope.
Well, they have goals to make these things happen. And then, of course, this year we have the Climate Summit coming up in November, where our own Dr. Carney is rolling out this plan for a cleaner environment, a net zero climate. Here's my question, as mayor, how do we communicate these big, massive, good, beautiful things happening, the plans of the world, of the people who are sitting behind there envisioning a better world for all of us? How do we communicate it to the masses? Because I think without mass media, one of the reasons we started this live streaming show is because this is the situation. There's no mass media communicating that big agenda,
right,
and good agenda to the masses, to the public. And so people out there are panicking. A lot of people unfortunately don't read. They listen to social media and they come up with all kinds of conspiracy theories. How do we, as mayor of the city, do you think this is something that can happen, that we can bridge the communication gap?
I do, and I think that today we've got every communication tool that is at our fingertips more so than ever before. You and I sitting in your studio today would have been impossible even 15 years ago, because the cost of it to be able to do this was astronomical. So utilizing the communication tools that are available today, one is, I think we have to challenge leaders like myself and other leaders not only to be informed but educated in regards to where these major topics going on. Then I think what we have to do is we actually have to be able to challenge our community to embrace where they fit into this equation. If it's about sustainability, if it's about equity, if it's about advancements in technology, I think what we have to do is we have to take the opportunity to have conversations like this. Sean, one of the things that really disappoints me in this day of mass communication is, do we ever talk about things that are really important?
Right.
And to me, you've highlighted and said, here are some ideas, here's some conversations that are going to be going on in the world. How are we going to do this here locally? And I think one of the ways that we have to do it is, one is we have to have the conversation. Not only do we have universities and colleges, but we have a business community here that we can have conferences and we can have conversations. Why is it that we can have an economic development breakfast, but we never talk about equality? We always talk about prosperity and about where our economy and what the markets look like. Shouldn't we also be talking about equity in our communities? And I think that those conversations have to happen locally. I think leaders like myself should be challenged to be able to say, how are you going to have these conversations? How are you going to invite the local public into these conversations? And where do you stand on these issues? And I think that that's an important thing to do. It saddens me that in a city the size that we have, that we don't have a lot of media in our community. Because I think media plays an important part of it. Asking the questions you're asking, demanding answers of the leaders, and then saying to the leaders, it's okay that you've got the answers, but how are you going to communicate that to the mass of the public? That to me is a really important part to be able to happen. So, for me, I've always learned that you have to know an inch thick about everything. Really,
as a journalist, yes.
You just have to know an inch thick about everything. But what I also try to do is equip myself, especially about things that I don't know, things that I don't understand, that I don't have a feel for, but really impact the public in general. And I think that having conversations like this helps challenge me and say, Mr. Mayor, what are you willing to do about it? What conversations you're going to have? When we were going under the auto crisis here locally, I brought all of the mayors from across Ontario that represent automobile communities. And we sat down and we said, we understand that the automobile business and the transportation business isn't going to be what we always thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. So what do we do as a collective group, and not only educating and informing, but how do we lobby and advocate for our communities to be part of the next generation of vehicles, the next generation of transportation, and the next generation of investment in technology? And we had that conversation, and it was a lively debate, because traditionalists were in the room that say, no, we'll just keep on building cars. And a lot of us were saying, but you have to understand, not only building cars, but the technology that goes with it, and the combustion engine. Yeah, the combustion engine will probably still be with us, but what percentage of the market will it be, and where do we fit in as if we're going to be in the assembly business? So I think those conversations, Sean, help be able to then say to the public, what can we do? What kind of houses are we going to build? What kind of streets are we going to create? How are we going to get autonomous vehicles around? How are we going to utilize the opportunity as a healthcare leader? How are we going to bring these new technologies into it? A good friend of yours and mine just had brain surgery.
Yes.
And he was in surgery for 11 hours.
Wow.
And he's home after 3 days.
Okay.
Now think about the technology, the skills, the abilities that have been undertaken to be able to see somebody that had major brain surgery and to be able to be back home recovering. That's the advances in medicine. And as you know, here in Durham region and in the city of Oshawa, we're part of over 11,000 people that work in the healthcare industry. So how does that roll into everyday life, and how do we start having a conversation about healthier, more vibrant lifestyles? I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. I mean, I find you one of the approachable politicians, one of the approachable leaders.
I get excited about this stuff.
Always very, very humble, right? It's so nice having a mayor that we can anybody could walk up to and have a conversation with. It's amazing, and a lot of people say that. We had 100 years ago. This image is in my mind. Simcoe Street, King Street, all these major streets were dirt roads.
Yeah.
Where buggies used to drive on and horses used to. And overnight, it changed to paved roads like we have now. Mm-hmm. And it's been so for 100 years. But now they're saying, the powers that be, if you will, these paved roads are generating pollution. The cars are generating pollution. And we're about to see society change, especially after the climate summit in November, into a place where we would have to have smart roads and smart buildings and smart commercial buildings and housing. And we would have to live smarter to generate a net clean environment. Now, it's not that I'm pushing the agenda of the environmental movement, because a lot of people are against that kind of thing as well. I'm not pushing it. I'm just saying this is how the world is moving, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
And how do you as a leader and also the government in a situation where there's a vacuum of mass media? We can't have this discussion unless I set up a studio. We don't have this discussion.
Right, but we can demonstrate it as a local government. We can do the things and invite the opportunities to be able to be part of that conversation. A prime example is with Durham Regional Transit right now. We have the very first autonomous bus with no driver that will be operating in Durham Region. So we've got it as a pilot program.
Is it running right now?
No, it starts, matter of fact, May 1st.
Oh, wow.
It's been delayed a year because of COVID, but it's starting May 1st, and it's going to be a really interesting conversation and study based to be able to see exactly how it changes people's thought process, not only introducing them to an autonomous vehicle and what that feels like and putting your trust into it, but what are we going to learn out of it? And I think that that's what we have to do. If we don't have the opportunity to speak about it in this type of form, I think what we have to do is demonstrate what it looks like. So when it comes to, I use our universities and colleges here again, one of the opportunities that we really have an opportunity to do is to do some innovative things right on the street. So we can do some scientific programs right on our streets. We can do road temperatures, we can do air quality, we can do traffic flows and people counts. We can do all of that. We can utilize AI in regards to learning more about human behavior. Now we have to have a community that is a willing host in regards to it. But if you have designated areas, I think we as local government can actually demonstrate that and embrace it. I think too many times we play it close, like we're always we're always making sure we're safe, and that's the biggest thing. In local government, we're always saying we got to be safe. So we got to be very calculated, right?
So it's a very conservative.
Well, it is. It really is, because instead of us saying, we're going to do this, and the reality being is, somebody may already be so far advanced than we are. The idea being is, what are we going to learn out of the experience? And I think that you've got to create an environment where failure has to be part of an acceptable end result. And I think if we do that, I think it'll be great. But it's got to be shown by local government.
Where do you see Oshawa being in 5 years? Let's say you continue to be mayor, you're a leader. What's your vision?
My biggest thing is that, and you've heard me speak about it before, is I want to be able to create a community that everybody feels that they have a fair opportunity at affordable housing, affordable living, a place where we've addressed poverty issues and people that are unsheltered. I want to create a community where people actually are part of a community, where they can live, they can work, they can see their kids graduate and go to school. I want to see us excel in healthcare. I've got what's called a 30-year plan. Now, I have a 30-year plan that I've put out so I can kind of sit there and kind of look at and say, what are the components that we have today as foundational pieces, and where do I think that we could strive for over the next 30 years? And a big part of that is I try to look at what are the kind of things that are going to change our world. And part of it is healthcare. Healthcare is going to change our world dramatically, not only in regards to how we diagnose people, but how we treat people. And hospitals will play a different role in our community and in healthcare. And I'm looking at that saying, where do we fit into that equation and how can we lead? You've heard me speak, I think, off camera about my vision of a healthcare campus and creating not just a hospital, but a healthcare campus where we have long-term care, we have rehabilitation care that is there, we have mental health care, we have traditional hospital care, we have triage that is happening in our emergency rooms. That we're looking at it as a campus, and it's really a learning library environment where everybody is learning from one another, but the continuance of health is part of where our future lies. So I keep on saying to myself, where do we need to be over the next 30 years, and try and strive for that. But again, as I go back to, inequity will be the downfall of society if we don't fix it.
So with all due respect, Mr. Mayor, for the past 2.5 years, if you were to go out here and talk to the average person on the street, they would say you have failed with that. With all due respect. Somebody commented on the last show that we had, a mutual person that we know, said to me, I'm surprised the mayor would talk to you because you're always criticizing City Hall, which I don't think I do, but to have tough conversations.
You have to have tough conversations.
Right, and to be able to engage in an authentic way to bring these issues to the table, but also to deal with them.
Well, I want to let your audience know something. I'm an imperfect person. I have a lot of desire to be able to serve the community at the very highest level, surround myself with people that are well educated, well informed, and that bring ideas and concepts to our city that will enhance every single citizen that is here. But through making decisions, through working with council, remember, we are going to make errors. We are going to fall short. But the reality being is every single day I go into City Hall, I look upon, there's two things. One is I feel very honored that I've been given the opportunity to be the mayor of this great city. That's number one. And number two is I never forget the 172,000 people that I represent, and that 70% of the people that cast a ballot last time went into a booth and put an X beside my name. That's a great deal of responsibility to carry out. They expect me to show up every day. They expect me to do my best, and they also expect success out of what I do. And you know what? That's what I'm committed to.
What would you say to the people in Memorial Park and the homeless people and the drug addicts who are out on the street, the mentally challenged people, the mental health sufferers? Mr. Mayor, what would you say to them now?
What would I say to them now? Is that we're not going to stop trying until we have everybody where they're supposed to be in regards to making sure they're in a safe environment, they've got the proper mental health and addiction care, that they're fed on a daily basis, and that we have an opportunity to save their lives. That is my commitment. I've made that commitment time and time again, and we have continued to put money and resources and experts in those fields. I am not going to stop until everybody's cared for. I know that some people feel that in some circumstances they haven't agreed with some of the decisions that we've made at City Hall, but the reality being is this, Sean. Since last September of 2020 till we sit here in March of 21, we have housed over 110 individuals that are chronically homeless. That means they've been homeless for more than 6 months in a row. We've housed over 110. We, as not only a city but a region, have invested over $25 million in housing and supported services. We, as a city, have created a one-stop place that was not in place last March that gives healthcare, housing care, mental health care, addiction care, feeding people, transportation, family counseling, and a safe environment for people to rest. We created that in the last 10 months. We are the only community that has outreach programs for the unsheltered and those that are suffering. We have our fire department checking on people that are in encampments that do not want any help, but it doesn't mean that we're going to stop until we look after them. I am committed. I come from that world, and the reality being is until everybody has a place that is safe, they have the proper services that are around them, and that we help them create new pathways, the job's not done.
So one of the big problems with housing is the development fee, isn't it?
Well, development fee on when you're in the business of building housing. But if you're building affordable housing or supportive housing, there's a lot of programs, not only through the provincial, the regional, and the local government, that we do things to be able to enhance them, to be able to invest in those areas. The reality being is we waive development charges. We make sure that we have partners with our social services to make sure that we have the right type of funding and supported services that are there. Because Sean, the reality being is we can't just build these communities and say to people, well, good luck. We need to make sure that that they've got the supported services. I spoke about this, and I've done a lot of research in regards to Regent Park. Now, Regent Park redevelopment has been, by the Daniels Group and TCHC, has been one of the greatest successes across Canada in regards to redevelopment and helping people. Why? Because they built a community that was a mixed income community. What did they do? They made sure the community centers were there. They made sure green space was there. You can't tell where somebody that is economically challenged, where they live, and where somebody that is a doctor that lives. They made sure that they brought the companies, they brought in they talked to the top 50 companies in Canada and said, would you relocate in this new community? We're going to have 15,000 people who live here, but here's the catch. If you relocate here, you have to stay here for 20 years and you have to hire from the community. Okay. There's examples about how we can do it. It's been a struggle because of the reason that we're lower tier. We've got regional government and provincial government. But the reality being is there's examples about successful communities and how we can actually do this successfully. And I am committed in regards to trying to push not only us as a local government, but our regional government. Mm-hmm. You and I talked previously about the guaranteed income. Let's try it. What do we have to lose? We have to continue to strive to try and make sure we meet the needs of every citizen, but especially those individuals.
And since we had that conversation, the Liberal Federal Party in government, they have guaranteed basic income on their agenda, at their convention.
They do, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes, because there's two big items that they believe that will be election issues, which is a national farmer care bill.
Wow.
Right? Or the guaranteed income. Wow. Now, a lot of people are saying that the Liberals may adopt under their policy, their platform, the National Farmer Care Program, which would help a lot of people that don't have coverage through their work, or are independent, or business owners like yourself that have to buy independent insurance programs. So this could be a really big platform item for them. Okay. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But you're right, the Liberals are having the conversation as a Liberal Party, a federal Liberal Party, which is guaranteed. I think you're talking about stretching government and doing things that are really uncomfortable. That's a prime example of stretching people and doing things that are uncomfortable. And I think it's a great thing for them to be able to do. You know, I've been pushing for the guaranteed income, even though everybody that I've talked to at the regional side and at the city side, run the other way. But that doesn't mean that we can't keep on trying. And it's something that I'm very passionate about, so let's give it a go. Let's get uncomfortable.
Do you agree with me if I say within the region, but especially in places like Oshawa, there is not a really conducive atmosphere for new ideas across the board. You might have a few people who.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. There's these pockets of conversation that go on. There's young business persons kind of group where you've got people like Kyle Douglas and as Steve Conaby and some Ryan Hare and some of these other people that come from family business that are young leaders, the next leaders of our community that are coming together. I think they call it the Young Presidents Club, and that's a really interesting thing. There's some really dynamic business leaders, women business leaders in our community. Cindy Malachowski is one of them. Alexa Kaufman is another one. Some of these young women that are creating these business groups and conversations that are going on. I'm pleased to be able to see those groups, but I don't know if we have a group, that I've been invited to or that I'm aware of, where we have both male, female, young and old coming together to discuss new concepts, new ideas, and new solutions for old problems or new problems. But I'm really pleased to be able to see some of those other groups that I've been exposed to that are doing some incredible things. We're at a period now where we're seeing, the leaders of yesterday, previous leaders that really played a significant role in the history of our city, especially over the last 30 years, they're starting to retire. So a lot of the younger people, especially on family business, are coming up and they're starting to lead. So that excites me to be able to see those people. A guy like Ryan Douglas, smart, intelligent, charismatic, well-read, very innovative, just really interesting leader in our community. He's got a brilliant future in our community. Okay. I think he's going to do great.
Okay. Do you see Oshawa ever becoming again, and maybe it's a loaded question, do you see Oshawa ever really becoming a great city as it was back in the day?
I have to think of it every single day that it will be. And I think that what we're doing is, I've been in conversations, matter of fact, just this week, since my last visit with you, with two of the top companies in the world that we're having discussions with in regards to their investment in our community.
Really?
Yeah. And one of the things is that we are reaching for the fence. A lot of times we limit ourselves. We say, they won't be interested because we're only this big. And what we're trying to do is say, no, let's try and swing for the fences and let's have these conversations. What can we learn if we fall short? What can we learn out of it? That's part of what I'm looking at. I also, you just have to. I think you have to do it. It's like you interviewing people. You always want to interview somebody that's going to be really, really tough because you want to sharpen your skills and you want to learn something out of it, right? Yeah. So you're always going to be striving for that. What I also is really amazing is our engineering and development services department. We're challenging each of us to be able to look at development differently. And when you're looking at if it's industrial or if it's e-commerce or it's anything, is how can we do this different? What are we going to do to create a different environment? In a new business park, what is that going to look like? Is it going to traditionally look like one that we've seen all across this country, or are we going to create something where people go, wow, I didn't know this was an industrial park and it has all these integral parts? There's a really exciting project that's coming up that it's been approved by the city. It's an independent, it's 5 business leaders that have come together that are building a brand new campus for their 5 unique businesses. Wow. And they're going to have a daycare, they're having a technical center, they have an environmental studies area, they have an entrepreneur program, they have an environmental footprint where they're going to create this environment where it's really good for the environment and the waterways and stuff like that. It's really exciting, and I'm really excited about it.
The public doesn't know about these things.
No, they don't, because it's a private investment that we've been involved in, and we're not at liberty to kind of let the cat out of the bag yet. I can't tell you who it is, but I can tell you what they're trying to achieve. So when you see people that do that, then what happens is others say, hey, I want to do that. And so you start setting the bar from here to here to here to here. And we keep on doing that. And part of my job as a leader at City Hall is, yes, my job is Chief Encourager Officer and Chief Consoler Officer, but it's also about bringing ideas and concepts to the table to say to our people, let's push it a little bit harder. Let's ask for more. Let's see what else we can do. Let's have conversations with big companies that don't know how to even say Oshawa, never mind know where it is. So it's worth a shot.
Where do you see cities being in the future, near future, like within 3 to 5 years? Do you think there's going to be a massive transformation happening in cities?
I hope so. I hope that we see our infrastructure change dramatically. I'm really hoping that how we start taking traditional cities and start redevelop them, that we're going to see not only AI and technology play a role in that, but I'm really hoping that we also are seeing a reinvestment in infrastructure and how we do infrastructure, how we take into consideration the environment. I think one of the things that we've done is, you brought up a really good point, is we've paved everything. We pave everything. If it moves, pave it. If it don't move, pave it. Kind of thing, right? and I think one is, you're right. It's not good for the environment to roll off of. We're going to have more and more severe storms. We know it in both winter and summer. So we've got to take those things into consideration. So what's that going to look like in regards to our traditional, let's say, downtowns or our neighborhoods? How are we going to change that kind of environment? So I see our city, if we have the support of our community, I want to see our city embrace those kind of opportunities and really see us change our infrastructure. It's hard when you come from a traditional auto assembly community to be able to say we need more bike lanes and green spaces, and we need smart roads and smart lights, and we need autonomous vehicles, and we need less parking on the street because your autonomous vehicle can go park somewhere else. And what are those parking structures going to look like? But think about it. When we build new parking structures, why can't we have the best parking structures around that show you through technology where a parking space is? Why can't we have places, and we can see it right now with Tesla and some of the other automobile companies, where the car is, you can drop it at a valet place and it parks itself. I mean, why not create those kind of opportunities? We have a city that is full of bright, energetic, brilliant young people from around the world. Why not take some of their ideas and implement it here in the city? What have we got to lose?
Don't you find our city is a bit too conservative for the kind of future that we're facing?
Sure it is. But
and this is not knocking the conservative movement.
No.
I'm a conservative myself.
I don't think it's. I think, again, as I use the word in government, we always play it safe. I think people worry about our terms. I've been elected for a 4-year term. The way I look at it is, I'm going to take these 4 years and do the best job I possibly can. And by the way, I'm going to learn a lot in those 4 years. So I'm going to continue to grow as a leader. But I've also looked at it as that I'm not worried about being reelected. I want to be reelected, but my focus is on the first 4 years of my mandate and what the people have given me. Then I'll be judged based upon what I am able to accomplish within that 4 years, if they'll honor me with a second term. If not, I won't be the mayor of this great city. I hope that I will be the mayor in the next election, but I have to continue to be able to not only hear what our community is saying, but I also have to demonstrate by pushing people a little bit to say, let's get uncomfortable together. Let's try something a little bit different. Let's make mistakes along the way. Let's just kind of reach for the fences.
I think one of your challenge, if I may say, is to clean up the downtown core.
Yeah. And by the way, it's not just us. It's Vancouver, it's Kingston, it's Barrie, it's Kenora, it's all over. So it's,
you're the one who really educated me on the opioid crisis. And I was absolutely flabbergasted when I learned that this is a North American problem. It's all across the United States, it's all across Canada. It's not just an Oshawa problem. But let's look at Oshawa and even make Oshawa kind of a solution center, a guinea pig, if you will. If we can find a solution here that we can spread elsewhere, it would be amazing for the city, right?
Yeah, and
is there a magic bullet, you think?
I don't know. I mean, in Vancouver, I've talked to the experts in Vancouver, and they're trying a whole bunch of different approaches in regards to the opioid crisis. As you know, Vancouver, I think, British Columbia loses almost 1,800 people to the opioid crisis every year. Canada, we're almost at 5,000 deaths each and every year in regards to the opiate crisis.
Even this year.
Even this year. And 2020 was a bad year. Matter of fact, opiate deaths even increased throughout the pandemic. But there's a great book, and I don't know if I've made mention of it. It's called American Overdose, and it's all about the opiate crisis. And I learned a great deal out of that because I wanted to understand how is it that these pain clinics came out? How is it that it got overprescribed? How is it that the average person got addicted to this really potent opiate? And how do we address it? Because I think you have to understand the history of something so that you can actually be able to move forward. In Vancouver, when I spoke to the experts, there's a gentleman named Scott Harrison that works out of Vancouver, and he's worked with the federal government in regards to the distribution of clean heroin, which is done through the federal government, and they have patients that come in, inject clean heroin that the government provides for them. They monitor how well they do. They've got safe injection sites. They've got programs. They've got housing. They're learning as much about what works and what doesn't work. And it also has to be said, just because it works in Vancouver, I don't know if it'll work here. So I think that the key is, I've always looked at it, is what worked in the circumstance that I come from is, how did it work for me? So what worked for me was one, is having the support to get into a program. That was number one. The big part of it was what happened about when I came out of a program. Where did I go? Who supported me? What disciplines did I have to implement? What kind of supported services did I need to be successful? And what I learned out of that experience was my sickness in regards to my physical health was addressed in the hospital. My psychological issues were dealt with not only through our 12-step program, but also professionals. But then when I came out, I was given an opportunity to be surrounded by the services necessary for me to be able to actually succeed. So there was psychologists and psychiatrists and addiction specialists. There was jobs people. I shared with you, and you know this, that I couldn't read or write. So I had to learn that and deal with those kind of things. I think when we have those type of services surrounding people, I think we have an opportunity to save people. But the reality being shown is one of the hard parts about it is we can't force people into treatment, and we can't force people into trying to get better. But what we can do is we can continue to try and save people through initiatives that we have. And
so if I may, for our viewers who don't know the mayor, let me just for 2 minutes. I happened to interview him before he became mayor, right?
Yes.
About his life and his biography, if you will. There is nobody I've interviewed in my life as a journalist, in my whole career, who had a worse start in life than this man here. And he's now mayor of the city where I live. He's, at 2 years old, he had to battle with issues. At 6 months old, when his mom passed away, right?
Yeah.
And he was adopted at 2 years old. His dad had to give him up. At 13 years old, his brother died, and he ended up on the street. He was an alcoholic, drug addict. And his sister rescued him at the age of 31. So from the age of 13, am I getting this right?
Yeah.
To the age of 31, he was on the streets in Toronto, living off of like nothing, no family, nothing. Drug addict, alcoholic, homeless. And today, he rose from nothing, from that environment, to be mayor of our city. And a man much well loved in the society. How do you take that experience? And because I think the entire city expected Mayor Dan Carter would solve the situation down there.
Yeah, and I think that we saw this with Barack Obama. If you remember when Barack Obama was elected, everybody saw him and saw Martin Luther King standing right beside him, and the expectation of he's our savior. And I think Obama had to face a lot of the day-to-day issues in regards to running a country that really were very difficult. He made some difficult decisions to be able to bring in new programs like the Affordable Health Care Act, or Obamacare as they call it in the United States. I think that it's the same thing as I think people have a huge expectation of, because of my background, that there's going to be this massive shift within a very short period of time. Sean, I've been the mayor of this city for about 30 months. The first 24 months is just remembering where the bathroom is and getting used to the job and really understanding the roles and responsibility.
Okay.
You also have to understand that when I walked into the office, we had lost 20,000 jobs 3 days prior to me coming in office. You also have to remember that.
But it's shut down the GM.
Yeah, and you have to remember that in recent history, no other mayor has had to deal with a pandemic that has lasted over a year, and how that impacted our economy and how it impacted our community. So there's been some things that have really taken priority because the moment is called it. So I always look upon it and say, and you know the subject matters of our city, and say, okay, so Dan, what did you do about GM? And I tell people, I say, one is I kept the conversations going even when they made the announcement. I met with all their executives and the union to be able to sit down and say, where do we go from here? I continue to try and keep a positive lens in regards to it. I kept conversations going with General Motors. I kept conversations going with Unifor. We reached out to Steve Carlisle and David Patterson and Scott Bell and Travis Hess and all these people from General Motors saying the history of our community, we're good at this. Give us an opportunity. And the first investment was the $170 million, the test track and the parts division. And through leaving the door and the conversation going, and I always say it's like hostage negotiations. As long as you're talking, you can see that there's an evolution, right? You can always move forward. And because of those conversations, the union and GM, bless their heart, have come together and said, you know what, we're coming back. Very first time GM's ever done that. Closed the plant, walked away and said, we're gone, we're done, right? And came back. A lot of credit goes to a lot of people, but we kept an eye on the ball because we understood that we had to find a way of getting those jobs back. We had to find a way of getting the investment back. So, I've been in the job for 30 months. We've addressed a lot of the issues that we came into. I'm not making excuses, and I still have a lot of work to do.
But you're right. When we had the pandemic and we had GM closing after 100 years.
100 plus years.
Think
about that. Right. We went from early 80s where there was 30,000, 35,000 people that worked on the auto assembly line to 2,500 people working in it 2 years ago.
So is the new plan, would they make use of the, I think, 3 million?
They're going to make use of the whole plant. They're going to utilize the paint shop. They're going to utilize their assembly. Right as we speak today, we have, I think, close to 400 construction workers that are down at the plant, refitting the plant, working the plant to get it ready.
But Mr. Mayor, this baffles me. All these positive things are happening. And even when the big mall was going up north, Oshawa, which is still under construction, and the project was in the works, this kind of information and news is not getting out to the people. So people are not inspired in Oshawa. People are not thinking, oh, Oshawa is booming, Oshawa is doing well, we have like $3 billion worth of investment coming in, I think.
Right.
People don't know this kind of thing.
And you know what? And the big thing is that we have to continue to take opportunities like this to talk about it. The one thing I love doing is talking to people. I love town hall meetings. I love having discussions. Even if people disagree with me, I'm okay with that. I mean, every day I look upon it as I'm a student of society. I'm going to continue to learn each and every day. And by the way, somebody's going to have a really good idea that I'm going to go, wow, we should do that. I mean, that's part of this role, but we've got to continue. One of the, again, as I come back to, one of the shortfalls of our community right now is we don't have a large presence of the media. The other thing is we live in a society now that bad news sells. Bad news, everybody wants, what do we say in the media? If it bleeds, it leads, right? So I talk about prosperity and I talk about new builds and I talk about the GM thing and they go, yeah, but did you see that fire? It's like, yeah, and did you see how well we use new technology? Yeah, but it's bad. It's like, come on, folks. Like, there's a lot of great things that are happening. So it is my job as the chief encourager of the city of Oshawa is to be able to take every opportunity I can to be able to educate, inform.
Tell the story of the city, right? Tell the story of what's going on. Although I must say, it's for me personally, it's very heartbreaking to walk down Simcoe and King and Simcoe and Bond and Atoll and Simcoe and see that area, Memorial Park, John and Simcoe.
But it is changing. It is changing, and the great thing about it is we've got the urban market that is opening up April the 20th, which is the old RBC building and downtown, right? That's going to change our community. We have $100 million because of the reason that one of the things that hurts our downtown is that we have no way of being able to access fruits, vegetables, any type of food items. We don't have a service that's there. We're going to have 15 different vendors that have these fruits and vegetables. It's a farmer's market. It's a restaurant. It's an area where people are starting to gather and be able to get those services. We have a lot of people that live downtown but have to get in a car and drive somewhere else to get their services. We're going to be able to we're bringing that to downtown Oshawa. Along with that is we've got the brand new tower that's being built at Marion Bond. It's 375 units. That's almost 1,000 people that will be living in our community. We've got 70 King that was just redone. The Janosh is a gorgeous building. I don't know if
but how affordable is this thing for the average person in the street?
Well, the reality being is we've got a whole range of affordability in regards to it. You can rent things in downtown Oshawa for $3,500 a month, or you can rent something for like $900 a month. The idea being is landowners like myself that have buildings in the downtown is we try and create environments where it's suitable for today's people that want to live in our downtowns. Most of our units are very affordable, but we own older buildings, but they've got brick walls and they got granite countertops and sinks and stuff like that. But you can get a bus right outside the door. You can get a coffee shop right downstairs. You can go across the street to the new urban market. It's about creating downtowns that people want to live in, that are vibrant. And you know what? Downtowns have always been about family business. It's about the energy that a downtown, a unique experience, culinary, entertainment, education, all of that happens in our downtown. The last year, sadly, what's happened is because of COVID, a lot of small businesses have not been able to survive. They're all family businesses, by the way. And that breaks my heart because they're not entitled to be at the Oshawa Center. You got to be a name brand there, right? The place where you can succeed is in downtown Oshawa. You can have your small coffee shop or your sandwich shop. You can sell your groceries there. But we have to create an environment where people feel safe, they feel supported, and that they have the services that are necessary. That's what we're achieving. That's what we will achieve.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll keep this conversation going every week. It's great. Join us every week, Thursday at 5 o'clock. Here's the goal of this whole situation. This conversation that we're having is a very dynamic, authentic, open conversation. And the mayor is one of the most humble persons you could meet. So we're having a very open, no closed kind of, I'm right and you're wrong. None of that. The goal is we want to bring some innovative new ideas to the city, that this mayor can make some significant changes and see some differences happening, especially in the downtown core. The rest of Oshawa is booming. It's doing well. North Oshawa is like metropolitan city now with all the malls going up and everything. But the downtown core, we're all concerned about it, and we are having a conversation. We'll come up with innovative solutions, and our mayor is going to lead the city to something great. I'm very, very sure of this. That's why we have you on the show.
Well, I really appreciate it. And your audience should know this too. You don't give me any questions ahead of time. You don't tell me what we're going to talk about. And one of the conditions I said is I will answer every single one of your questions, and I promise you I make that. So I love to hear from your audience about things they're concerned about, ideas that they have, and I'll be more than willing to answer them. But it's good to see you once again.
Yeah, great. Right. Thank you, sir. Thank you.